Okay, so we need to talk about Alicent Hightower from House of the Dragon. I made a video when Game of Thrones was still on about Sansa Stark and the unnecessary hatred towards her, called If You Hate Sansa Stark, Then You Are Wrong. I got a lot of stick for it, I still stand by it. There was a lot of misogyny in the fandom then. A lot of it internalised misogyny, which was the real kicker for me, like a lot of women getting involved in it. So here we are, friends. We now have House of the Dragon. I'm obsessed with. I love it. Like, I've got my book here. Like, I've just finished my masters, so, you know, old habits die hard. It's annotated. It's annotated, it's got post-it notes in it. But we need to talk about Alicent Hightower. Now, I could talk about her for a really long time based on the book, but to make this a shorter video, because this is not a video essay, although I'll make one of those soon, I think, I just want to talk about Alicent Hightower in the show. Because I have noticed an alarming amount of misogyny in the fandom of House of the Dragon, which surprised me because this feels to me like a Game of Thrones like show that actually has dealt with a lot of its issues with sexism. Like it's based around these two female characters and their families and their paths. And to cut a long story short, because this isn't an essay video, which I will make, we've got two kind of young girls who are innocent, like nice, good people, who kind of, one gets consumed by the patriarchal system and kind of becomes part of it, and the other one like continually fights against it and asserts her rights, and both of them are kind of destroyed by this misogyny. And the weirdest thing I find is, I mean, people are splitting off into teams. This is for another video. How absolutely bizarre and like unengaging in the book material or the source material on the screen. Like, if you come away from it with like teams, like football teams. I don't understand it really. It doesn't really make much sense. We're in 2022 and they're essentially all fighting over a throne which was won via conquest, which in 2022 I think we're all pretty much agreed isn't the best. But obviously Rhaenyra's been she's been usurped because her dad has told her, like, if we're going with monarchy, I'm anti-monarchist. I think most of us are, I hope. But she's the heir, right? And she's going to be passed over because she's a woman. It's more complicated than that, and again, this isn't the video. But I can understand people, like, bigging up Rhaenyra, and I'm the same, because she is a character who doesn't sort of... She doesn't accept things as they are. So when she's talking to Rhaenys and, you know, she's telling her that... Rhaenys is telling her that, you know, oh, they voted against me before, they won't accept a ruler that's a woman. You know, Rhaenyra's like, well, I'll create a new order. You know, I'm going to do that. There's definitely hints of Daenerys in her character. And to a modern audience, like, she's really appealing because we relate to her, especially the way it's told. I love the way it's told. It's so much... Her perspective is so paramount in this show. Also Alicent's is, but we've got people willfully ignoring that. But I understand it because Rhaenyra's the one who is fighting for her rights as a woman. It actually reminds me, in British history, there's this situation called the Anarchy, where you had a king that died, and you've got, I don't know if you know about Empress Matilda and Stephen, and they had like this war because people wouldn't accept that the heir was actually, the original male heir was killed in a ship accident. He drowned, and it left Matilda, the king's daughter, and she was meant to be queen, and people wouldn't accept a female ruler. It was more complicated than that, and it's that kind of thing, because I know George R.R. Martin, you know, takes from different points in history for the show. There's heavy Wars of the Roses references in Game of Thrones, and in this as well, the idea of like a civil war, like a feud kind of thing. Different factions at court growing. But this is the part that I don't understand. Because, okay, so you've got people who are going into teams, which is, honestly, unless you're doing it ironically, I don't understand, because the whole source material seems to be about how the Iron Throne literally hurts you to sit on it, you know, it destroys everyone who gets near to it. It's like, you know, power only lies in the eyes in the minds of men. It's this terrible thing that everyone fights for, but everyone ends up miserable. You win or you die, and even if you win, you're miserable. Like, to me, I mean, I've just finished my creative writing masters, so to me the messaging is pretty clear. It's that people shouldn't be ruling other people, and that these feuds and this like family honour shouldn't come before your life, you know, like, don't waste your life in that. It's an oppressive system which will then oppress other people, like, no matter how well intentioned you are. It's a horrible system, and I think that's the point, you know, I think that is the point. Especially, I will make a video about the kids. I'm not liking seeing people hating on these children. There's people hating on the kids in this situation. Kids who've been grown up in a war that's not of their making, kind of made to feel certain ways about their own family, and they're kind of victims of this. And again, it's the Team Black. I'm going to call you out. Okay, people who are Team Black. I'm kind of with you in the sense that, yes, Rhaenyra should inherit, of course. Right, but this is what I don't get. And this is why I think these people are betraying their own... I'm going to say it. These people who hate Alicent so much, young Alicent, are more like Alison than they are like Rhaenyra, and I'll explain why. So these women are both existing within a patriarchal system. Let's just go with the show. Let's not get my book notes out. That's for another day. But even this, I have thoughts on. But you've got two reactions to it. You've got Rhaenyra, who is brought down because of sexist smears against her, and we've got that in the book and in the show. You know, we've got the whole situation where groomer Uncle Damon you know, takes her out, and even though she's obviously younger, there's a power imbalance, you know, she's been manipulated, she's kind of been groomed, it's really not good. She is then punished as if by her dad even, and Viserys is a good guy in the time period. For the time period, he's pretty progressive, but even he's going with the, oh no, you know, you've done something terrible, we got to hide this really quickly, you know. So in the world of the show, Rhaenyra's being brought down by sexism, like that's it. It's misogyny, it's patriarchy, and the whole, you know. There is. I will say this. I will say that also people going into like Team Black really in an extreme manner. I think we also need to step back and think we're from 2022. This is a medieval-ish fantasy, and I think we're now in a democracy. We're like kind of moving away from those structures, and I actually think like, you know, people are like, oh yeah, the Targaryens need to rule because of birthright, etc., etc. The Targaryen, this is because I'm also really into British history and just history around the world. But you know, the Targaryens, as we know, they didn't come from where they're at, you know, they colonised, they came in and they conquered, you know, that's history, you know, it's not like, oh, these were the pure-blooded people who ruled and their dad ruled and their dad ruled and they should just rule forever. That's not, you know, the Targaryens were conquerors, they took what they wanted. And I'm going to say this, people hating on Aemond right now, sure, he didn't act very nice, kid Aemond, we're about to meet adult Aemond and I'm sure he's going to be all sorts of awful. So this, I'm just talking about the kid, that's as far as we've got. I'm seeing people saying that he's not much of a Targaryen on Team Black. I hate the team thing, but Team Black. They're saying, oh, he's not a Targaryen. Now tell me, what is not Targaryen about disobeying everyone and literally claiming and conquering a massive dragon and riding it through the night by yourself? Like, what's not Targaryen about that? That is conquest. That's conquering. That's Targaryen, and that's it. You know, I've often thought in the show, well, yeah, in terms of the actual Game of Thrones show, like Dany, for example. A lot of people come at me for this. Dany is a conqueror, right? I know we like her, and she has good morals for someone in the show, but she says she wants to break the wheel, and I think her tragedy is that she does have these good morals, but she can't really break that wheel because she needs to kind of, she intends to kind of take her place as a more just ruler. It's kind of a liberal thing to do. It's not a leftist thing to do, and it's not really about freedom. It's, I'm going to be in charge instead, I'm going to change who's in power, and I'll do things a little bit more fairly. Which is, for sure, better than a lot of the other characters in the book, which is why we like her. You know, she's nice, she does care about people, but she's still a conqueror, she's still leaning on birthright. And I feel like the book and the show is trying to make us think, ugh, it was executed poorly, I won't lie. You know, the way they suddenly made her into this mad tyrant over such a short period of time was ridiculous, and it was poor writing. But I do think if they'd done it over a longer period of time, it would have worked. I think that possibly George R.R. Martin is taking her into that place because I think that's what it's examining. And I think that's her tragedy. I don't think we're supposed to hate her or anything. You know, I think we're supposed to like her. I think the message is, look, even the most well-meaning of the birthright rulers here, it's still ruling based on oppression and birthright. You know, dragons are a tool of oppression, and they're like nukes, right? They can kill loads of people at once. That's not a great thing. The only person I actually stand behind in that whole show, although I like different characters, is Sam Tarly, because he knew what was what. It's about democracy. And there's a really funny meme right now. I don't know if you've seen it. The Aemond as a communist meme is cracking me up. It's not serious, but some of the people on Team Black are taking it really seriously, like it's actually like a thing. It's just funny because obviously the joke is these are all monarchists. They're all trying to rule and claim and conquer. So, you know, this kind of framing is, oh, Alicent's Republican and Rhaenyra's a Democrat kind of thing. They're all operating. We can't really get away from the fact it's not progressive. None of them are. And it is funny that he seizes the dragon, which is like the means of burnification I've seen. That's quite funny. And obviously his actions will actually eventually result in the kind of destruction of the Targaryen dynasty. You know, that's the joke. It's not serious. Okay, I don't know where I was going with that or if that even makes sense. But yeah, so let's go with the whole young Alison thing. Now people are so desperate to become teams that they are missing It's sexism, it's internalised, I'm sorry, it is, it's internalised misogyny, and it is not something Rhaenyra would support. The people who think they're supporting Rhaenyra are actually acting more like Alison. They are acting like the Alison we see in the show and in the books. Because Alison is the one that leans into patriarchy. So Alison thinks, this is my law, I've got to operate within it. She's operating inside patriarchy, and she is using misogyny. So she is presenting herself as virtuous. You know, that there was that line in the show, wasn't there, about Rhaenyra saying, you know, the cloak's gone now. You know, you've tried to show yourself as so righteous. That's what Alison's doing. These are two women trying to navigate the patriarchy, and it's Alison who uses patriarchy. Rhaenyra's not having it. Rhaenyra is not trying to get through patriarchy. She's forward-thinking, despite leaning on a birthright, which is, you know, hereditary monarchy and, you know, conquest and violence and stuff. But, you know, she's got kids that it doesn't matter that they're not, you know, they're not legitimate kids. She's understanding of Laenor, you know, she's quite forward thinking. So let's look at what we see with Alison and Rhaenyra and take away that misogyny. Because I think some people are so either team focused, like it's a sport, which is, in my opinion, a really odd way to get into this show and its world, you know, the Song of Ice and Fire world, because that's not in the text, it's not in the subtext, like it's a deconstruction. Like, the world is this world where people are trying to navigate something that shouldn't be navigated. It's dangerous for everyone involved, and that's why we get point of view from different characters all over the place. You know, they want us I feel like it's deconstructing that. It's like, oh, you thought this was a villain? Or what's their perspective? And it's just this giant mess of people who are in such a dangerous situation that they do terrible things for the people they love and become villainous even if they're nice, you know? Because the system's bad. That's what... Look, I'm an anti-monarchist. The system is not good. It doesn't matter if the people in the system are good. The system is not good. Samwell Tarly was right. But let's look at Alison, because I was really shocked. You know, obviously they've made some changes, so let's just go for the show version. When we meet Alicent, Alicent is a sweet, kind, clever, shy girl. She adores Rhaenyra, Rhaenyra adores her, and shout out to Emily Carey, who gave it that kind of sapphic vibe, because I think it really fits her character. I think that Alison, it doesn't change anything, because Alicent's whole character, in my view, is repression. It's operating within patriarchy. I don't think she can look at herself. She can't self-reflect, because then she has to start to freak out about how she's playing into the patriarchy and that she's lost herself and it's all for nothing, and that's kind of her breakdown, isn't it? That's Alicent's character. She can't do that. So that extra level of repression works for me because she's so repressed. But this is a girl who's lost... She doesn't have her mother in the show. Her one close and good relationship is with her friend Rhaenyra. I think she loves Rhaenyra. Doesn't really matter if it's romantic or not. You know, I think she loves her. She's an intelligent girl, so she has political insight, as we'll see later on. She reads the histories, she learns about these things, and yet she's kind of a pawn. She's a pawn to her father. And I just want to point out here, right, we know Rhaenyra's personality. Alicent would not be Rhaenyra's best friend. Let's be real. If Alicent was this person who's always been this terrible, nasty, irredeemable, two-dimensional person. You know, that's just ridiculous. Like, that's not what we're being shown. We've got a girl who is motherless, who is coerced. She doesn't have the power Rhaenyra has. And people don't think about this. Rhaenyra is definitely the one who goes the right way, rather than Alicent. But people aren't thinking about the fact that Rhaenyra has the privilege and the freedom to do that. She is the princess of the realm. She's the realm's delight. She's got a lot of leeway. As we see, it's very different with Alicent. Alicent can't do what she likes. Her relationship with her dad is very different. Alicent, to a certain degree, has to live by rules. It's not going to be charming if she does something which is, you know, not something that a woman should do. It's not charming for her. It's charming for Rhaenyra because Rhaenyra is that princess. You know, she's got that power, which Alicent doesn't have. Alicent is being coerced into spending time with this older guy that I think she does care about him. Like, that relationship is interesting to me because I think perhaps in Viserys she actually craves the father that she doesn't have in Otto, and I think that's what it is, because I do think there's love between them, and I think Olivia Cook said that, you know, of the older Alicent. I think there is love between them. But I think that's what she craves. She clearly does not want... She's not seducing this man, and this is... I am seeing people who are supposedly Team Rhaenyra. I'm seeing women doing this, and I wish I could say it was the men doing this. It's not the men doing this, it's women. And that's the... Ugh, it's awful, because... Right. It only hurts you if you're a woman who does this. that it's not a black and white situation. People are so desperate. Women are so desperate, and it breaks my heart to make this into an evil stepmother narrative, that they will fit things that happen in the show into that rather than thinking about Alicent as a full human being. And it's so annoying. You know, they're acting like, oh, she seduced the king behind Rhaenyra's back. Right, but she didn't seduce him. Right, this girl is literally, in the text of the show, she is self-harming. She is picking her skin to pieces. Her father asks her, why do you destroy yourself? She is near tears. She is afraid to speak up to her father. That's all she has. And you're also not, I mean, I'm obsessed with Tudor and medieval history. I don't know if you can see. That's all Tudor and medieval books over there. And I think that, because this is sort of like a medieval fantasy realm and it's that sort of time, Alicent has to be loyal to her father. Like, everything she has is in the power of her father. Her father can, you know, he can beat her, he can marry her off to someone awful, you know, someone actually violent and terrible. He can take away her money, he can take her away from court. That's the power he has. And I feel like people are underestimating the fact that patriarchy is operating. Alicent did not spring up from nowhere and decide to be evil. Right, we are looking at, and I don't understand how anyone who likes this genre or this show can even think that, because the whole of Game of Thrones is showing us that characters adapt to the situations they're in, and most of them are corrupted by those situations. You know, it's the idea that, oh, she was a bad friend to Rhaenyra. No, she wasn't. She had to make a choice. She had to, if she doesn't obey her father, that's it. That's all she has. I don't think people quite understand. And people say, oh, you're taking Alicent's agency away from her. It's not taking away a character's agency to point out that they're operating in a system where they're not allowed to have agency. You know, that's ridiculous. It's like when people look at the Wives of Henry VIII and they assign more agency because they think it's really feminist, when actually you're doing them an injustice because you're not actually telling the story of the fact that these are women who deserve to have full lives, but they were constricted by patriarchy. Like, they were. It doesn't work to take that away. I think because I'm so into history, like, I think about this a lot. But Alicent is told, and then she's told by the king. The king says, you're not telling Rhaenyra about this, are you? She doesn't want to jeopardise the only good relationship she has in her life, which is with her best friend Rhaenyra. Okay, she doesn't want to be... I don't know what people are watching if they can't see that she's near tears. There's guilt, there's shame. She doesn't want to be with him. He's so much older than her. He is not well. He's not attractive to her. And she's having to do this. And she does as her father asks. And okay, you can say that, oh, she should have stood up to him. Yeah, okay, maybe. But also, that's not the reality of the world she's in. It's not a modern situation. It's not your best friend today secretly seducing your dad. That's not the world they're in. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. This girl is hating it. And people were presenting it like she was the villain. I'm sorry, how is she the villain? Otto is the villain. Patriarchy is the villain. And I'm going to say it. Viserys, as much as we like him as a king because he doesn't misuse his power as much as he could, is also a villain in this situation. People are offering the men in this show so much more leeway. I mean, don't get me started on Daemon. I will make a video about this. Daemon is violent. He's impulsive. He kills his wife. He's literally grooming his own niece. And people romanticise it. And they say, oh, it's great because he's a grey character. Which is fine, because Game of Thrones is full of grey characters. And I get that. George R.R. Martin himself has said that Daemon is such a fascinating character because he's, you know, you don't know what he's going to do. What are his motives? Like, you never know what you're going to get. Which is fine. And then you get people who can't apply that to female characters. Not an inch of that is being extended to Alison to even understand something which is on the page. Like, it's on the screen. That girl, like, the episode where Rhaenyra is kind of groomed by Daemon and that whole situation happens and the Christian and all that. Alison is, she's a nurse to Viserys. You know, she's looking after him. She's taking on those burdens. She's forced to sleep with him. It's a form of really. It's you know, it is. It's not something... I know it's different in that time period, but that's what it is. And she hates it. And you can understand that her bitterness is growing from the fact that Rhaenyra has the power she doesn't have to make those decisions, to say no, so to do what she wants. So what we're seeing in young Alison is not an evil person. We see her time and time again as well in the show advocating for Rhaenyra, and she does this to an extent that her father tells her off for it. She does it to Viserys. We watch her fighting Rhaenyra's corner to Viserys after the Daemon incident. I don't know what people are watching or what they want. Like, okay, you want to have like an evil stepmother situation because that gives you a kick because it's misogynistic, it makes you as a woman feel better. But that's Alison. You're acting like Alison because that's how she starts to behave to navigate it. Like, it's the people who think they're so pro Rhaenyra by doing that. Because remember, Rhaenyra in the show continues to see Alison as a full being. I know things have gone awful right now. Even at that point when, spoiler alert, the whole Harrenhal thing happens. Now, what we actually are shown is that Alison does not ask for that to happen. It's something that Larys does to basically trap her because he's got this over her now. And he's shown that, you know, it's all done. You know, it's not something she asked for. And Rhaenyra is intelligent enough that she realises that. You know, when she's walking with Daemon, she says, I don't think her capable of, like, cold murder. And Alison, at this point in the show where we're at, by next episode, maybe she is. But Rhaenyra is right. Rhaenyra is often right in the way that she judges people. She's good at judging what people are like. Apart from Daemon, but obviously she's being quite groomed by Daemon, so... You know, that's a bit different. I think she's a bit... That's very sad in itself, you know. I was very much for her and Harwin. Like, they were a nice couple. I feel... Yeah, I feel a certain way about the fact as well. People are like, oh, I love Rhaenyra so much. And then they're like, so I want her to be with the uncle that groomed her and killed his wife. It doesn't make sense. But Alison is a coerced girl. That's what you're seeing on the screen. She's not an evil person. And it would be a ridiculous... You know, why would you even engage with media if you just want flat... characters like that? You know, the actors themselves, the writers of the show have tried to kind of present this perspective, because let's not forget the book, not getting into the book, but the book is not definitive anyway. So, you know, people saying, oh, it's this in the book, it's this in the book. The book is literally a deconstruction of history. It's George R.R. Martin pretending to translate texts that have come down from generations after things happen. It's word of mouth, it's biases, you know, that's the beauty of the book. You're always having to try and think, how much truth is there to this? Why would this person say this? Is it in this person's interest to say this? Like, have they got a bias? And it's a fantastic way to engage with the text, because that's what it's like when you're studying history. Like, I'm like intensely studying, like, for example, Anne Boleyn, and you have to look at different sources about her, you know. Most of them didn't even meet her. They didn't know anything. It's propaganda. That's the book. So people expecting... The book itself is made up of male sources from that time period, especially, you know, the maesters have the strongest voice. They're gonna be sexist. So I put it to you that it's not even against the book reading that Alison is given more depth, and also Rhaenyra is, because it's written by the maesters. If your life and your decisions were being written down by an old man from the medieval period, how do you think you'd come across? And it just frustrates me because the show is doing such a brilliant job of portraying these two women, these two complex characters. And of course Alison's going to be a villain, but it's because she's going to become part of the patriarchy to survive in it. You know, it's a Cersei thing, isn't it? But what a shame if the women watching just seem to see her as this evil character that sprung up out of nowhere. And the whole team sport thing is honestly ridiculous. You know, to finish, the people that are being misogynistic about Alicent, right? The people who hate her to such a degree that they can't even... I don't mean people who admit that, you know, oh, she's had a bad time and this is how she became this way. No, that's great. But the people who are trying to literally, from the moment she was on screen, trying to make some terrible thing... There was the scene where she was pregnant. And this is a woman who is being impregnated by a man she's not attracted to, and she has to do this as part of her duty, and she has to smile and she has to be polite. And she's trying to do her part, and she clings to rules, doesn't she, and order, because there's nothing else. She's got no control, and she has to have faith that if I do the right thing, everything's going to be alright. And that's why we see her kind of breaking down later and becoming kind of, you know, really lashing out in a nasty way because it's so repressed. She's, you know, there was the scene where Viserys says to Rhaenyra, you know, hopefully I'll be a proud grandsire soon. And Alison reassures her and says, you know, it's not so bad. And okay, yeah, it's probably clumsy because people are saying, oh, you know, but Rhaenyra's mother died of childbirth. But they were willfully interpreting it as if Alison was like trying to dig at her, which doesn't even make sense in the context of that episode where Alison is still on Rhaenyra's side and advocating for her. They're so desperate to have an evil stepmother narrative. It doesn't make sense. It's not on the screen. It's literally a sexism that you've invented. You've invented it yourself so that you can have a team and feel better as a woman and feel powerful as a woman, because that's the bad one and that's the good one. And it's okay to use sexism against the bad one because she's the bad one. And that, my friends, is how Alicent Hightower starts to think and why she becomes a villain. So, thank you for watching this video. You can tell I'm heated about this, you know, I'm really heated about this. I have so much to say about it. Yeah, hope you enjoyed. I'll be making more soon. I really want to make a video about the kids in this situation and the family dynamics, because the thing I love about this show, the showrunners themselves have said this, that they're making it about the idea that this is an adult feud which is being passed down to kids. And they're just children, like they're just children that want to connect with each other, and this whole system is eating them alive. Like, it's going to be a tragedy for all of these precious kids, just as it was a tragedy as we saw the potential for Rhaenyra and Alicent to be very strong together, and that got destroyed by this whole thing. So yeah, and this isn't me defending Alicent's actions which are bad. I'm just saying that it's really bad to see and sad to see women unable to engage with the text on a level which sees her as a human being, as a woman in a patriarchal society. I'm not saying you have to like her, but to use sexism against her in that way, you know, I think it's worth examining. It's worth examining why, as women, and if you're not a woman, you know, welcome to watch this video, why we're more willing to see the good in someone like Daemon, who is unquestionably worse at this point. And yet we want to caricature Alicent. You know, it's that very medieval feeling is still within us, that very Tudor feeling, that feeling of attack the woman. And it's not nice. Okay, I love you loads, and I'll see you really soon. Alright, love you, bye!